Hey guys, welcome to Ask Truth Apologetics. Apparently, if I start to bring up the age of a Muslim consent or when and can divorce a child bride who has not yet menstruated and they've consummated the marriage with them, apparently when I start to bring those things up, that's a pretty big trigger for Muslims to get very, very upset at me. And I do understand that because it seems offensive to assert that the best of mankind, who, according to the Muslims, is Muhammad, did something so absolutely horribly heinous that is very morally just disgusting. And they get upset when you start to say that about their prophet. But I'm not saying it. I want people to understand that, like when a Christian or someone else goes and says, well, Muhammad was a pedophile, well, basically what they're saying is he had sex with an underage girl. And we're not saying that just because we want to slander him. We're saying that because your own Muslim sources, your own hadith, your authentic narrations of the deeds and words of the prophet, and is multiply attested, have said that he's done that. The Quran supports that there can be child marriage, which my last two videos were about, because it talks about divorcing someone um, who has not yet menstruated, and we covered the topic that saying um, if the husband has not slept with his wife, he can divorce her without there being a 3 month waiting period. But if he has slept with them and he divorces them, there must be a 3 month waiting period, including, according to the tafsirs that I read in my videos, including girls who were too young for menstruation. All right. So, I've gotten a lot of different responses from Muslims when it comes to this. The most honest Muslims, I think, are just going to say, like Yasser Qadi, they're going to say, look, Aisha was 6 when she was married to the Prophet, and she was 9 when the Prophet consummated the marriage with her. Okay, that's the most honest, straightforward, you don't have to do any weird math equations approach. The other approach that I've been getting is this convoluted calculus of, if this person was born at this time and this date and blah, 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 then she couldn't have possibly been 9 years old or 6 years old when she was married and 9 years old when she consummated. So there's people who basically just say it is what it is and we accept it and we still remain Muslims. And then there's people who say, well, this is absolutely a disgusting practice to have sex with a 9-year-old girl. And we don't believe that Muhammad, being the best of mankind, would have ever done that. So therefore, they try to find a way to either discredit the authentic narrations in the hadith by doing some weird math equations. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you guys today is a response, and I've gotten a couple of different responses from Muslims on this topic, but this is the one that I just got most recently. Some of my exchanges have been very, very respectful, and I really appreciate those who engage with me respectfully, and I appreciate your heart, and I appreciate what it is that you're trying to do, and I understand why you would like to defend your prophet. And then there's other people who are a little bit more disrespectful in their engagement, and come on, guys, let's just be respectful. We're all seeking the truth. We're all seeking God's heart, I believe. And so all we're doing is having a dialogue, a discussion. And sometimes if we feel strongly about our own positions and the other person is strong about their positions, we would call that a debate. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share on my screen or on your screen here um, kind of a exchange that I had with my with one of my Muslim friends. And so what she said, basically, here, let me scroll up on this. Um, this person was named A Voice in the Dark. What they wrote to me was in black, and what I responded back to them is in red. So I just want you guys to take a look at, what I'm looking for. So Muslims, this is kind of for you to be paying attention to. So as a Christian, this is what I'm looking for, and this is the kind of information that I need to become convinced of your particular argument. Okay. And at the same time, I want to draw attention to how convoluted your argument actually is and how inconsistent it is and how much special pleading that needs to be done when it comes to doing this kind of research slash scholarship. Okay, so my letters are in the red. This other person's letters are in black. All right, so the first assertion they make, is they say, look, uh, let's saying that if somebody looks into the historical facts, um, which my question to them is, what makes something a historical fact, and traditions of the time, we will find overwhelming evidence, which is a loaded assertion, that her age cannot be 6 or 9 at the time that the marriage was consummated. So I just responded back to them, even though Aiesha is reported to having said that she was 6 years old and 9 years old herself. So I'll give you guys I'm reading this from my Evernote account. So I'll just give that link to you in the description box so you can read it yourself and you can follow all of these. Um, you can follow all the hadith that you want to. Okay, but as you can see here, the hadith, there's Bukhari when she says she was 6 years old when they were married and 9 years old when the prophet had sex with her. There's two in a row from Abu Dawood which say the same thing. Either she was 6 or 7 years old at the time of marriage, but everybody's in agreement that it was 9 years old when the prophet had sex with her. And then there's another hadith in Sahih Muslim where they were where the marriage was consummated at the age of 9. And when you read these things, they're narrated from Aisha herself, right? So it says, Aisha said, when I was 6, I was married to the prophet, and when I was 9, um, he had sex with me. So this is straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And so two things that I want to pay attention to. One, all of these hadith, including Dawood, are Sahih hadith. That means the chain of narration that's not is very strong. All the people that in that chain of narration from Aisha to the time that Bukhari or Dawood or Muslim is recording it are very strong. They're all honest, upstanding people. The chain is not broken, and that means that this hadith is considered to be authentic. And it's not just one hadith, guys. We're looking at 4 hadith. And there may be more. I don't know. This was as many as I could find in the short period of time that I was looking into it. I think it's important for us to pay attention to what the timeline is of some of these people when they're writing it. In my opinion, just in general, the closer someone is to an event, the more likely their account of it, their personal eyewitness type of account of it, is going to be accurate. We all understand that over time, certain legends and things like that can build, and you can get a little bit of exaggerations and things like that. Okay, so Al Bukhari, he was born in 810 and died in 870. Sahih Muslim, he was born in 822 and died in 875. From what I understand, Muslim was a student of and kind of a contemporary of Bukhari. Dawood was born right around that same time. They're all pretty much contemporaries of one another. He was born in 817 and died in 889. Okay, so she says that some of the earliest historians that wrote books about Islamic history are Ibn Ishaq. So Ibn Ishaq was born in 704 and died in 767, and Al-Tabari was born in 839 and died in 923. So what you're going to see here, guys, is Ibn Ishaq is actually going to be the earliest historian when it comes to the life of Muhammad. There's really no other historian who's written anything down prior to him, or at least not that we are aware of. Al-Tabari, which is one of the top scholars, one of the most respected kind of biographers of the life of Muhammad. He was born basically around the same time as Bukhari, Dawood, and Muslim were, and they were written within a couple hundred years after the Prophet passed away. And the Prophet passed away in approximately 632 AD. Okay, so we're talking kind of at the end of a couple hundred years after that, except for Ibn Ashaq. He's within that 100-year range of it. And they gathered information from their grandfathers and other elders. Okay, so I should have asked for more sources on that, but let's just go ahead and say, for argument's sake, that all of the claims that she's made in that are true. So one thing that I do want to note for you guys, because I was talking about Ibn Ishaq and how he's the earliest person to have written anything about Muhammad, is the fact that we actually don't have any of his writings. So what we have are writings produced by Ibn Hisham, who died in 833. So again, we're looking at a contemporary of Sahih Bukhari, Muslim, and Dawood. We're looking at people as well as Tabari. So we're looking at Ibn Hisham, who has created all these things. He's contemporaneous with those other hadith writers. Okay, so what Ibn Hisham did was he kind of rewrote what Ibn Hisham wrote. Okay, so the facts have been gathered for a generation or two. Well, a generation is about 30 years, so we're talking 3 to 5 generations, but whatever, after the Sahaba, which is the companions of the Prophet. So let's look at some of the evidence that says that she was way older than 6 or 9 years old, right? So this is the kind of stuff as a Christian and as a skeptic, of course, that I'm looking for. I'm looking for sources. I'm looking for a lot more information, explicit sayings of other people to say that Aiesha was older than 6 or 9. So far as what I can tell is there's no explicit statement that contradicts Aisha's own words. Okay, so she says now Aisha was the fourth child of Abu Bakr, but he had a total of 6 children. I don't know where she got that information from, so I'm just going to put in red letters source. I don't know. Now, Tabari reports that Abu Bakr's 4 children were all born during um, Jahalana. Sorry, I really don't understand. I don't speak Arabic very well, which is basically translated as the age of ignorance. The pre Islamic period, which kind of ended around 610 source. So I just need the sources for those things. I don't know if she's just making that up or where she's getting her information from. I would just like to be able to double check. When the Prophet started preaching Islam, when the Prophet started teaching Islam. After that, for about 11 to 12 years, the Prophet preached in Mecca before migrating to Medina. And in Medina, the marriage was consummated. I just want to see the source where she gathered that information from. Now, Ibn Hisham's recension of Ibn Ishaq, which is awesome. She actually included that into there, right? She didn't try to pass off the information as being exactly Ibn Ishaq. So I really appreciate her for having the integrity and the honesty, at least in that sense, to say that it is from Ibn Hisham, which we remember from earlier. He was contemporaneous with Dawood, Muslim, and Bukhari. So I said that he died in 833. So we actually don't know when he was born. Excuse me. So his after his recension, the earliest biography of the Prophet, records show that Aisha, having converted to Islam before Umar ibn al-Khattab. So my question then is, who's Umar ibn al-Khattab, and why is it important to know? Now I know I can look this up, but when you're giving sources, guys, you want to be able to allow us to go find those sources. I don't want to have to do all this extra legwork. You're the one who's making all of these assertions. You need to be able to substantiate your claims and provide sources for the information that you're putting forth. So during the first few years of Islam, which was around, I misread. Which is around 610. So Ibn Sayyid, who is this, has stated that when Abu Bakr was approached on behalf of the Holy Prophet, he replied that the girl had already been betrothed to Jubair and that he would have to settle the matter first with him. Source, where's that from? I don't know where that's from. This shows that Aisha must have been approaching maturity/puberty at that time. I don't understand why that can confirm that she was approaching puberty at that time. I don't know what source that she can cite that can confirm that what she stated is anything besides a baseless assertion. It basically in encroaching upon conjecture. Okay. Again, the Sahaba, speaking of the Prophet's daughter, Fatima, said that she was born 5 years before the call and was about 5 years older than Aisha. So where's the source of this information? Okay. And again, we're saying about. So even if this is an authenticated source, nobody's giving exact numbers. We're kind of going into rough guesses, estimations, conjecture. Okay. And the fact that Aisha herself is reported. So what I find super interesting about this is where the biggest inconsistency from this person's argument comes. So she's actually asserting that because Aisha reported this herself, and it's in Sahih Bukhari, by the way, that we can rely upon it, but she's somehow going to reject when Aiesha herself says in Sahih Bukhari that she was 6 and 9 years old when the Prophet married her and then had sex with her. Okay, so I just find that to be a very interesting. Um, I don't know. It's pretty convoluted, if you ask me. Um, so to have stated that when the chapter of the Quran entitled "The Moon," the 54th chapter, was revealed, she was a girl playing about and remembered certain verses, and then revealed. So, what's the source of this information? When was this chapter revealed? How can we confirm that the chapter was revealed at that time? And then again, she was a girl. That's a pretty broad state, right? I can call someone a girl when they're 16 and they can have their menstrual cycle, right? So when she says I was a girl playing, how old was she? Was she 1 year old? Was she 2, 3, 4? We don't know how old she was. Um, this is again just complete conjecture. This is very just, it's watered down. It's not a lot of solid information. Now, the 54th chapter was undoubtedly revealed before the 6th year of the call. Again, what's the source? How can I confirm that that's a true statement? All of these considerations, which I would say they're convoluted conjecture, not necessarily considerations, point to but one conclusion, which, okay, interesting. All of these estimations point to a conclusion. I don't remember when a bunch of estimations equaled anything specific. But anyway, she says that Aiesha could not have been less than 10 years of age at the time of her nikah, which is, I don't know, I guess that's her period, and was virtually only a betrothal, right? So she wasn't officially married until then. So according to the Hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, Aisha is quoted as saying to have joined the Prophet on the events that turned into the Battle of Badr in March of the year 624. Again, you're appealing to a hadith from Bukhari and Muslim saying that Aisha quoted this herself. You're saying that this is the truth because Aisha is saying it herself and it's from an authenticated source, but you're rejecting her saying that she was 6 years old and 9 years old herself in a Sahih Hadith, Bukhari, and Muslim. I'm going to keep repeating this because I find this to be a completely insane, um, an insane assertion. Why are you holding double standards? Why are you saying, well, I'm going to accept this thing and this other thing has the exact same criteria that I need, and I'm just going to reject that because I don't like the idea of a 53 to 54-year-old man climbing on top of a 9-year-old girl and having sex with her? Guess what? I don't either. That's not the best of mankind. Okay, so she's saying that um, that Aisha is quoted as saying to have joined the Prophet on the events that turned the Battle of Badr in March 624, and then in 625, the Battle of Uhud. Again, source, where are we getting all this information? Um, at that as at that time, anyone under the age of 15 was not allowed to accompany the party. Source, where the heck can I find that that's a rule anywhere? So that at the time, Aisha must have been at the minimum 14 or higher in 624. Again, for that to be a conclusion, would have to say, number one, that you can tell me that no one was allowed to be there under the age of 15, which you provided no source. That's a baseless assertion so far. You're saying that she had to be a minimum of 14. So then you're going to have to assert that Muhammad followed all the rules that he laid down. You know, like the rules of marrying 4 women. How many women was Muhammad married to at one time? 9, 11? Who knows? Way more than 4. That's all that matters. So Muhammad has a history of breaking his own rules. So it's not that difficult for us to say that, look, it could have even been a rule. We could confirm that the rule was 15 years old. We can't confirm that Muhammad followed his own rules. In fact, we can show certain circumstances where he broke his own rules. Okay, so Usama ibn Zayd, along with the other kids, young kids, followed the Prophet for battle of Uhud. But the Prophet commanded them to return to Medina because they were too young, it seems. Are you guys catching on to this language? So the Prophet sent them home, and this person is making the assertion based on assumption. I'm assuming it just seems that he sent them home because they were too young. Is there a source that says that's the reason why he sent them home? Or are you reading into the text something that you're trying to make force fit your own narrative that isn't actually written in your scriptures. So she says, highly unlikely that if Aiesha was 10 years old, the holy, and I said debatable whether he's holy prophet, which is debatable whether he's a prophet, would have allowed her to accompany the army to the field of battle when he sent Usama and other youth back instead of their age, equals 14. Again, this is complete conjecture, 100% speculative. You've provided almost no sources of information whatsoever to your claims. Okay, so as to, I assume this is Al-Tabari, but it may have auto-corrected. Maulana Muhammad Ali writes in a footnote under this report of his Urdu translation and commentary of Sahih Bukhari entitled Fadi ul Bari, or Fadl ul Bari. Maulana Muhammad Ali had pointed out reports of two events which show that Aiesha could not have been born later than the year of the call. Where does it say that? What's your source? Does it explicitly say that, or are you just using conjecture and assumption, trying to make it fit your own little narrative because you think it's disgusting for a 54-year-old man to have sex with a 9-year-old girl? And if you do think it's disgusting, I applaud you. Leave Islam as soon as you possibly can, because that is what happened to the best of mankind. Okay, so I need to do a couple of things here so that I can keep scrolling. All right, so here we are. Sorry about that. All right, so pointed out through the events, Aiesha couldn't have been. Okay, so what I just said was that she couldn't have been born before the year of the call. Again, like I said, complete conjecture. Aiesha mentioned in Bukhari. Again, you're citing Bukhari and Aiesha's own words, so you're still holding the double standard of accepting one and rejecting the other, even though the same standards apply. About the earliest memory of her parents being that they were followers of Islam began with the following words in its version in Bukhari's Kitab al-Kafalat. These are as followed. We, who's we? I don't know who we is, quote this from the English translation of Bukhari by M. Mushin Khan. Since I reached the age when I could remember things, I have seen my parents worshiping according to the right faith of Islam. So these are apparently Aiesha's words. Not a single day passed, but Allah's apostle visited us in the morning and in the evening when the Muslims were persecuted. Abu Bakr set out for Ethiopia as an immigrant. So I'm not really sure where the source is. I assume it's Sahih Bukhari, but she didn't provide the hadith number. Commenting on this report, Maulana Muhammad Ali writes, excuse me, this report sheds some light on the question of the age of Aiesha. Okay, so conjecture? I don't know. Why are you going to... I'm repeating. I'm sorry. Aiesha herself in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and other Sahih narrations says that she was 6/7 years old when she got married and 9 years old when she had sex with the Prophet. Why are you rejecting those and accepting other ones? And they're not even explicitly denying it. You have to use these weird, convoluted, trigonometry-based equations to even make it approach and seem as if she was older than 6 or 9. Who am I going to believe? If Aiesha goes on the stand herself in the court of law and the judge is trying to determine what her age was when she had sex with Muhammad, and she said, "Hi, I'm Aiesha. Lay your hand on the Quran and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, except for Taqiyya," but that's a whole other story. And she says, "I was 9 years old when the Prophet had sex with me." Okay, and then somebody who is from 200 years later says, "Well, we aren't sure if she was actually 9 years old. There's some math equations here that we can take a look at. None of them are actually affirming any particular solid date. We're going to use very general terms like girl or youth or before the call or ever since I can remember. But we're pretty sure that she was, at least 14. what's the judge going to say to that? Which of those two cases is the judge going to accept? The firsthand account of the person who it actually happened to, or somebody who comes along 200 years later? And really now it's 1400 years later, where this girl is reading into all of these different sources and trying to force something to fit a narrative that she would like it to fit. And I applaud her for liking her to fit it into that. But the facts of the matter are the facts of the matter. And the facts are, Aiesha said she was 6 years old when she got married. She was 9 years old when she had sex. Period. End of story. That's Aiesha's own words. I don't know why we have to keep talking about this. Okay, it's gross. Leave this on. So this report sheds some light on the question of Aiesha's age, blah, 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 along with the immigration to Ethiopia. What year is that? What does that mean? I don't understand any of that. It does not clearly show anything, that this refers to the 5th or 6th year of the call. Source speculative. It's a miserable argument. At that time, Aiesha was at an age to discern things. What age is that? When does someone reach an age to discern things? Like, my 3-year-old can discern certain amounts of things. My 13-year-old can discern certain amounts of things, and my 23-year-old can discern a certain amounts of things, which is different from my 53-year-old or 73-year-old grandpa who can discern certain amounts of things. These are completely open wording and language. There's nothing specific about any of this. It's complete speculation, and it's pathetic. Okay, so her birth could not have been later than the first year of the call. Again, this would make her more than 14 at the time of the consummation of her marriage. Based on what? Seriously, based on what? I'm reading this. I see no facts stated whatsoever. I do see a fact stated in the sources that I shared from Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and Abu Dawood that say from Aiesha's own mouth that she was 6 years old or 7 when she was married and was 9 years old when the Prophet climbed on top of her and had sex with her. I don't know why this is a discussion. I really don't. Okay. There's a report in Sahih Bukhari. So you trust Bukhari again, right? Why not when Aiesha said she was 6 or 9 in Bukhari? Why don't you trust that? As followed. On the day of the Battle of Uhud, when some people retreated and left the Prophet, I saw Aiesha's daughter of Abu Bakr and Suleiman with their robes tucked up so that the bangles around their ankles were visible, hurrying with their water skins. In another narration, it is said, carrying the water skins on their backs. Then they would pour the water in the mouths of people and return to fill the water skins again, and came back again to pour the water in the mouths of people, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what's the source? What's the hadith number? What's your point? Right? So I wanted to go kind of through all of this information for you guys so that you could take a look at the other side of the argument. Now, I have asked a handful, half dozen, maybe 10, upwards of 10 Muslims who have had this kind of objection. I say, look, why don't we schedule a Skype call? We can do a live discussion here. People can come, they can join us, they can jump in, they can ask questions. We can go back and forth and discuss, your sources. So I could have asked her if she was brave enough to call. I could have asked her, okay, what's your source? And then we could go online. We could pull it up right here on the screen, just like you guys are seeing. And we can take a look at it. We can go, okay, let's look at this. Let's see your sources. What are you trying to, basically I'm saying we can have a conversation about this. But of every single person that I've asked, they've all refused. They've all backed out of saying, well, no, I don't want to have a conversation with you about it, blah, blah, blah. Look, if you have the truth and you trust that you have the truth without a shadow of the doubt, okay, and you trust that Allah will strengthen you and provide you strength, I'm not going to bite you. I'm not going to humiliate you. I want to have a discussion. I want to learn. I want to comprehend what it is that you're thinking that maybe I'm missing. It's really difficult sometimes to read something that you've written me and to say, like, look, I don't understand it. I don't quite understand it. So this is my understanding of what it is that you guys are writing me. From what you're writing me, it's moderately laughable, but I might be misunderstanding something. So please be courageous, be strong, be brave. Tell me, give me a call, show me what it is that that I'm missing. Why are us Christians? Why do we keep saying Aiesha was 9 years old when the prophet had sex with her when she wasn't? Why are we so confused? Solve it for us. Call in. Let me ask you questions. We have a back and forth discussion, and so that I can learn to understand what it is that you believe. All right, guys. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I really do. And I really look forward to any Muslim who wants to explain this to me. Please, I will give you my contact information and give you my Skype information. We can schedule a phone call. Okay. But in the meantime, I suggest that you guys go read the Gospel of Matthew or the Gospel of John. Figure out who Jesus actually was. Compare Jesus to Allah in the Quran, and tell me which one is morally superior. All right? So I want you guys to know something important. Jesus loves you. Have a good one.